Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. The blueprint for the Blue Heron project was spread across my mahogany desk like a tactical map of a city I was no longer sure I wanted to build. My fountain pen, a vintage pelican with a nib that glided like a skater on fresh ice, hovered over the structural specs for the cantilevered terrace. I was a man of measurements. I was a man of tolerances, stress tests, and load-bearing walls. In the world of high-end architecture, predictability wasn't a slur. It was a promise that the ceiling wouldn't collapse while you were sleeping. "You're doing that thing again, Brandon," Marcus said, leaning against my office doorframe. He was holding 2 espressos, the steam curling around his neatly trimmed beard. Marcus was my business partner and a walking cautionary tale of what happens when a man lives entirely by impulse. He had 3 ex-wives, 2 sport cars he couldn't afford to insure, and a dog that only responded to commands in French. "What thing?" I asked, not looking up. "The precision stare. You're looking at that floor plan like you're trying to find a soul in the drywall. It's Friday afternoon. The Maldives tickets? Did you pull the trigger?" I finally looked up, a slow smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out the printed itinerary. 2 weeks. Overwater bungalow. Private chef. A guided tour of the bioluminescent bays Nicole had been pinning to her Pinterest boards for 3 years. $3,000 for the flights alone, I said. Business class. The works. Marcus whistled, handing me my coffee. "Damn, Nicole's going to lose her mind. You've been Mr. Steady as she goes for 4 years. This is the Brandon breaks the mold moment. I'm proud of you, buddy. Though if you want my advice, which you don't, make sure she sees the price tag. Women say they want romance, but they respect a receipt. That's why you're on your 4th engagement, Marcus," I replied, taking a sip of the bitter, dark roast. "Exactly. I'm an expert in the beginning of things. It's the middle where I get tripped up." He checked his watch. "I'm heading out, taking the Porsche to the coast. If I'm not back by Monday, assume I've joined a cult or a regatta. Probably both." I watched him leave, his chaotic energy trailing behind him like a scent. I liked Marcus. He was the chaotic static to my clean signal. After he left, the office fell into a comfortable silence. I finished the Blue Heron specs, filed the permits, and decided to do something unpredictable. I left 2 hours early. I wanted to see Nicole's face. I wanted to take her out for a pre-celebration dinner at that little French bistro where we'd had our first date. I'd hide the itinerary in a bouquet of lilies. I was, for the first time in a long time, genuinely excited. The neighborhood was quiet as I pulled my silver sedan into the driveway. Our home, a minimalist structure of glass and cedar that I had designed myself, looked particularly beautiful in the late afternoon sun. The hydrangeas Mrs. Gable, our neighbor, had helped me plant last spring were in full, violent bloom. I saw Mrs. Gable through the hedge. She was 82, possessed the sharpest tongue in the zip code, and spent most of her time meticulously pruning roses while wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat. "Home early, Brandon," she called out, her voice a gravelly soprano. "The world ending? Or did you finally get fired for being too sensible?" "Neither, Mrs. Gable," I laughed, stepping out of the car. "Just a surprise for Nicole. Surprises are like heavy cream, dear. Too much and you'll vomit. Too little and life is bland. I hope you've got the ratio right." She looked at me over her spectacles. "She's got the girls over." I heard the cackling from across the street. "Sounds like a hen house with a bottle of Chardonnay." "Thanks for the warning," I said, waving as I headed for the front door. I used my key, turning it silently in the lock. I wanted to creep up, maybe cover her eyes in the kitchen. I could hear them in the living room. The clink of ice, the rhythmic thud of a wine cork being pulled. It was Nicole's voice that stopped me in the foyer. It wasn't the voice she used with me, the soft, melodious tone of a partner. It was her social voice, sharper, higher, coated in a thin veneer of performative exhaustion. And then he suggested we watch a documentary on bridge suspension, Nicole said, followed by a peal of laughter. No way, another voice, Chloe, I think, giggled. He really is a caricature, isn't he? He's a metronome, Nicole sighed. I could almost see her rolling her eyes the way she did when I talked about my work. I love the security, I really do. The house is paid for. The retirement accounts are bursting. But God, girls, how do I survive another date night with Mr. Predictable? Tonight, it'll be the same Italian place. He'll order the saltimbocca. We'll be home by 10. He'll fold his pants over the valet, crease to crease, mind you, and then we'll have exactly 8 minutes of polite, scheduled sex. I feel like I'm living in a museum. At least he's rich, Sarah chimed in. My Dave can't even find the laundry basket. Wealth is just a gilded cage if you're bored to tears, Nicole countered. I sometimes wish he'd just, I don't know, lose his mind, throw a plate, buy a ticket to somewhere without researching the rainfall patterns first. It's exhausting being with someone who has no edges. He's just a smooth, round pebble. The itinerary in my breast pocket felt like a lead weight. I stood there perfectly still. My heart rate didn't even spike. That was the irony. Even in betrayal, I was calm. I was a man of measurements. And I had just measured the depth of her respect for me, only to find it wasn't even ankle deep. I didn't storm in. I didn't yell. I quietly turned the handle, stepped back out onto the porch, and closed the door with the silent precision of a jeweler. I sat in my car for a moment. Mrs. Gable was still out there, watching me. She knew. She didn't say a word. She just clipped a dead rose and nodded once, a grim acknowledgement of a storm she'd seen coming miles away. I put the car in reverse and drove back to the office. The office was empty, the shadows stretching long across the drafting tables. I sat at my desk and pulled up the airline's website. The cancel trip button was a bright, obnoxious orange. Are you sure you want to cancel? A cancellation fee of $250 per ticket will apply. I clicked it. The $3,000 refund, minus the fee, was processed in seconds. Next, I canceled the bungalow. The deposit was non-refundable, but I didn't care. That $500 was a small price to pay for the clarity I now possessed. Then, I opened a new spreadsheet. I labeled it, the exit. I spent the next 3 hours mapping it out. I wasn't going to be dramatic. I wasn't going to be unpredictable in the way she wanted, a temper tantrum or a midlife crisis. I was going to be the most efficient version of myself she had ever seen. I was going to disappear with the same meticulous care I used to design a skyscraper. I called my lawyer, a man named Henderson who specialized in uncomplicated dissolutions. Brandon, it's late, Henderson said. I need the deed to the house reviewed. It's in my name, premarital asset. I want to know the quickest way to serve an eviction notice if it comes to that, or a buyout agreement for the furnishings she contributed to. There was a pause. Nicole, Mr. Predictable is moving on, Henderson. I need the paperwork ready by Wednesday. Understood. I'll have it on your desk Monday morning. I hung up. I felt an odd sense of peace. It was the peace of a finished blueprint. The design was done. Now I just had to execute the build. The weekend was an exercise in high-level acting. Saturday morning, Nicole was her usual self, sunny, affectionate, asking if I wanted blueberry pancakes. I watched her flip them, thinking about how she'd mocked my scheduled intimacy less than 24 hours ago. You're quiet today, Bran, she said, sliding a plate in front of me. Work stress. Just thinking about the Blue Heron project, I said. It wasn't a lie. I was thinking about how to build something that lasted. Marcus is worried about the cantilever. You'll fix it, she said, leaning over to kiss my cheek. You always do. You're the most reliable man I know. The word reliable sounded like an insult now. That afternoon, I went to visit Marcus at his crash pad, a sprawling, chaotic apartment overlooking the marina. He was surrounded by boxes. His third ex-wife had finally sent the last of his belongings. Look at this, Marcus said, holding up a hideous neon green lamp. She kept the Eames chair and sent me this piece of radioactive garbage. Can you believe the nerve? Marcus, I said, sitting on a crate of vinyl records. I'm leaving Nicole. He froze, the lamp dangling from his hand. Wait, what? The Maldives? The breaking the mold thing. I heard her talking to Chloe and Sarah. I'm Mr. Predictable. I'm a smooth, round pebble. Apparently, our life is a museum. Marcus sat down on a box of kitchenware. The humor drained from his face. Oh man, the girlfriend wine talk. It's a killer, Brandon. It's where respect goes to die. They get together and compete over who has the most boring or most annoying partner. It's a sport. It's not a sport I'm playing anymore. So what are you going to do? Burn the house down? Sleep with her sister? No, I said, I'm going to provide her with the excitement she's been craving. The excitement of total uncertainty. Marcus grinned, a slow, predatory look. I like this. This is the version of you that scares me a little. What do you need? I need your storage unit. And I need you to help me move the heavy stuff on Tuesday while she's at her yoga retreat. I'm your man. But Brandon, you okay? I've never been better, Marcus. I finally have a project with no constraints. Monday and Tuesday passed in a blur of calculated movements. I worked my normal hours. I ate the same breakfast. I kissed her goodbye at the same time. Behind the scenes, I was a ghost. I rented a luxury apartment across town, a place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. I moved my personal files, my grandfather's watch collection, and my high-end drafting equipment, while Nicole was downward dogging 3 towns over. I spoke to Mrs. Gable on Tuesday evening as I was loading the last of my books into Marcus's SUV. So, the bird is flying the coop, she said, leaning on her garden gate. I thought you'd approve of the timing, Mrs. Gable. I approve of a man who knows when a foundation has cracked, she said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, silver key. This is for your back door. You gave it to me for emergencies. I expect you won't be needing me to water the plants anymore. Keep it, I said. You might need to let the locksmith in when I change the codes. She chuckled. Give her hell, Brandon. But do it quietly. That's where the real power is. Wednesday was date night. The tradition was ironclad. We went to Luigi's at 7:30 p.m. We sat at the same corner table. We talked about her week, her stresses at the marketing agency, and the upcoming social events she wanted to attend. I arrived home at 6 p.m. Nicole was in the bathroom, the sound of the shower running. I sat on the bed, our bed, and placed a single, cream-colored envelope on her pillow. Inside was a copy of the canceled itinerary for the Maldives. Across the top, I had written in my precise, architectural script, I thought about taking you here. But then I realized the weather patterns were too predictable. You deserve something much more spontaneous. Underneath it, I placed the legal separation agreement and the notice that the house would be listed for sale in 30 days. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of the expensive scotch I usually save for closing big deals. I sat at the kitchen island and waited. I heard the shower stop. I heard the humming. She was happy. She thought tonight was just another Italian night. 10 minutes later, the humming stopped. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the kind of silence that precedes a structural failure. I heard her footsteps. Slow. Confused. Then, the rustle of paper. I took a sip of the scotch. It was smoky, with a hint of sea salt. Then came the scream. It wasn't a scream of grief. It was a scream of pure, unadulterated shock. Nicole burst into the kitchen, her hair still wet, wrapped in a silk robe. She was holding the itinerary in one hand and the legal papers in the other. Her face was a mask of pale fury and confusion. What is this? She hissed, her voice trembling. Brandon? What the hell is this? It's an itinerary, Nicole, I said calmly. Or rather, the ghost of one. The Maldives. Business class. You've been talking about it for years. I bought the tickets last Friday. Her eyes widened. Friday? But that's amazing. Why does it say canceled? Because on Friday afternoon, I came home early to surprise you, I said, setting my glass down. I was standing in the foyer. I heard the Mr. Predictable monologue. I heard about the polite, scheduled sex. I heard about the museum you're living in. The color drained from her face, replaced by a blotchy, frantic red. No. We were just venting. You know how girls are. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything, I said. It meant that while I was building a life for us, you were busy mocking the foundation. You wanted excitement? You wanted someone with edges? Well, here's an edge for you. I'm leaving. The house is being sold. Your things are already packed in the garage. Marcus helped me move mine this morning. You can't do this, she shrieked. She threw the papers onto the island. You're being a child. So I said some mean things. Everyone does. You don't throw away 4 years over a conversation with friends. It wasn't just a conversation. It was a revelation. I realized that I've spent 4 years being a smooth, round pebble to keep your life comfortable. I was so predictable that you forgot I was a person with his own limits. She started to cry, the loud, messy kind of sobbing that usually made me want to comfort her. Tonight, it felt like static on the radio. The Maldives? She wailed. You were going to take me to the Maldives? That was my dream trip. We could still go. We can fix this. I already got the refund, Nicole. Well, most of it. I used the rest to pay for my new apartment's security deposit. It has a great view, much less predictable than this neighborhood. She lunged for me, trying to grab my arm, but I stepped back. The meltdown was in full swing now. She began pacing the kitchen, pulling at her hair. You're a monster, she yelled. To plan this, to stay in this house for 5 days, acting like everything was fine, while you were plotting to ruin my life. Who does that? That's psychopathic. No, I said, checking my watch. It's methodical. You told your friends you wanted me to throw a plate. You wanted me to lose my mind. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to remove myself from the equation. Isn't this what you wanted? Spontaneity? Uncertainty? You have no idea where you're going to live in a month. That's about as unpredictable as it gets. She sank to the floor, the silk robe splaying out around her. I didn't mean it. I love you, Bran. Please. You love the metronome, Nicole. You love the security. But you don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have made me the punchline of a joke over a bottle of Chardonnay. I stood up, finished my scotch, and picked up my briefcase. I left the number for a moving company on the counter. They're expecting your call. You have until the end of the month. I walked toward the door. Brandon, she screamed. You can't just walk out. We have reservations. It's date night. I paused at the door, looking back one last time. She looked small on the kitchen floor, surrounded by the remnants of a life I had carefully curated for her. I'm canceling date night, I said, permanently. I think I'll go find a burger somewhere. Maybe a place I've never been. Who knows? I might even sit in a different chair. I stepped out into the night air. The streetlights were flickering on, casting long, sharp shadows across the pavement. Mrs. Gable was on her porch, rocking in a chair with a glass of lemonade. She raised it as I walked to my car. The ratio, Brandon, she called out. Perfectly balanced, Mrs. Gable, I replied. I got into the car and started the engine. For the first time in 4 years, I didn't have a destination pre-programmed into the GPS. I just drove. I passed Luigi's. I saw the familiar neon sign, the predictable Italian place where we were supposed to be sitting at table 4. I didn't slow down. I found a small, hole-in-the-wall diner 5 miles away. It had cracked vinyl booths and a waitress named Barb who called me honey before I'd even sat down. I ordered a black coffee and a piece of pie. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Marcus. How'd the spontaneity go? I looked at the pie. It was cherry. I usually hate cherry. I took a bite. It was surprisingly good. I typed back. The structure collapsed exactly where the stress test predicted. I'm at a diner, eating cherry pie. It's delicious. You're a madman, Marcus replied. Welcome back to the world of the living. I put the phone away. I looked out the window at the passing cars, the blurred lights, the infinite, messy, unpredictable world. I wasn't a smooth, round pebble anymore. I was an architect, and I was very much looking forward to my next build. The aftermath, 2 weeks later. The Blue Heron project was nearing completion. I stood on the construction site, the wind whipping through the skeletal frame of what would soon be a masterpiece of glass and steel. Marcus walked up beside me, wearing a hard hat that sat slightly crooked on his head. She called me again, he said, shouting over the sound of circular saw. Nicole. Yeah, she's staying with Chloe. Apparently, Chloe's fun and spontaneous lifestyle is a bit much when you're actually living it. She wanted to know if you'd reconsider the buyout. The papers are signed, Marcus. It's over. She's devastated about the Maldives, Bran. She saw pictures of Sarah's trip to Hawaii, and had a full-blown crisis in a Starbucks. Something about how she lost her soulmate and a luxury vacation in the same hour. I looked at the cantilevered terrace. It was holding perfectly. The measurements were exact. She didn't lose a soulmate, I said. She lost a service provider. There's a difference. Marcus looked at me, really looked at me. You've changed, man. You're still the same guy, but there's an edge now. I like it. It's intimidating. It's not an edge, Marcus, I said, stepping onto the unfinished balcony, looking out over the city. It's just clarity. When you know exactly what the load-bearing limits are, you don't have to worry about the collapse. You just enjoy the view. And for the first time in a long time, the view was spectacular. I thought about Mrs. Gable's roses, Marcus's chaotic apartments, and the way the cherry pie had tasted in that dingy diner. Life wasn't about avoiding the unpredictable. It was about having a foundation strong enough to handle it when it arrived. Nicole had wanted different Brandon. Well, she got one. I pulled my phone out and did something I hadn't done in years. I didn't check my calendar. I didn't check my bank balance. I didn't check the weather. I opened a travel app and booked a single ticket to Kyoto. No research. No itinerary. Where are you going? Marcus asked, noticing the glow of the screen. Japan, I said. When? In 3 hours. Marcus laughed, a loud, genuine sound that echoed through the construction site. Mr. Predictable, indeed. Exactly, I said, handing him my hard hat. Check the tolerances on the south wall while I'm gone. And Marcus? Yeah. Don't be predictable. It bores the hell out of people. I walked off the site, the sound of the city rising to meet me. The sun was setting, casting a long, sharp shadow behind me. A shadow with edges so crisp they could cut. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.